Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Puff and Prosper podcast. This is a really special one. I am here with Carlos in person and Jasmin virtually. They are the owners of HoneySuckle Brand in Houston, Texas. So, why is it important that we're here? Why are they so special? One, it's the Houston, Texas connection. I'm from Texas, Houston specifically, and they have just done a tremendous job of deploying a palatable brand for this market, especially given where they are actually located. So we're going to dive into a lot of that. They have a lot of new things that I'm going to let them tell you about. But again, thank you for letting me come here. This is also pleasure. Very new, not only to me, but kind of to the industry and to this type of content. So thanks for letting us bust up into your retail store and for not hesitating to come on to this show and to take a chance on me with being a new podcast. You know, it's a little difficult to start scratching the surface. So sure. I really appreciate both of you for doing this. So we're going to dive into it. Really, I'll give it to you guys. Carlos and Jasmin, you guys can kind of go back and forth, but I want you to introduce HoneySuckle to everyone. What's y'all's story, the brand, that sort of thing. Take it away.
Sure. Well, thank you for even considering us for your podcast. We appreciate you. You've been huge support for us from the beginning. Not that we've been around that long. We started HoneySuckle in 2021 in April. And it just kind of was born out of we're serial entrepreneurs. We have multiple businesses, and I've been consuming cannabis since I was a teenager. And one day she came home and was like, hey, do you want to do CBD coffee? And I never thought to make it a business. It just never occurred to me because of the legalities and whatnot. And then I was like, I'm not really excited about it. So anyway, long story short, she actually introduced me to Delta 8 THC and was not familiar with it. And it was the idea was kind of born from that. And then if you want to take it away, Jazz, in terms of that day that we decided on the name and all that kind of stuff and share that part of the story.
Yeah.
Yeah. So kind of to backtrack there too, going off of what Carlos said. So he's been a consumer for, 20 plus years, and Carlos and I have been together for 10 years. And I've always been against cannabis. I think this is like the biggest part of the business was my idea, but I've always been against cannabis. And so I, for years, used to tell Carlos, why do you have to smoke before we go out? Why do you always have to be high? Like, why? It was like, why do you always have to, why can't you just be sober? And so that was just always my thing. I didn't fully understand it. And I think it was because, I was pretty much against it in high school, and then in college, smoked a few times. And I always got lit, like high in the clouds. And I thought that was just like the experience. When you smoke, you're stoned, right? And so that's why I was just always, why you always got to be high? And so when I came up with the idea, I was like, listen, there's people out here selling legal hemp THC products, and we could be doing this too. And so the serial entrepreneur kicked in. And I introduced Carlos to a woman here in Texas who has her own hemp shop, and she has a franchise. And so we considered, well, we could just buy into their franchise and, there's a name there and all that kind of stuff. But we recognized that we didn't like the brand. So it was very medicinal looking, the white and the green. That's just very typical in the industry, right? And we were like, we want this to be fun. So thinking about Jasmin, the Canna Curious, right? And you've got Carlos, the cannabis connoisseur. And how do we combine the two and really make it friendly, welcoming, fun, but still educate people and still advocate for reform and the legalities and all that kind of stuff. And so that's sort of how the brand was born, with the idea. And about 2 years ago in 2021, we were getting pedicures together, I think for the first time ever. And we were just sitting there with the ladies who were doing our nails and talking about names. And Carlos came up with the name HoneySuckle because he grew up in Georgia, and in the South, honeysuckle is a flower that's fragrant, and people use everywhere. People use it for medicinal purposes for centuries. And so we started doing research on the honeysuckle flower, and we're like, okay, besides the part that it's not illegal in a lot of places, like honeysuckle plants and cannabis plants are actually pretty similar. And so that's where we came up with the honeysuckle as the name of the company. And then it just sort of evolved from there.
I love it because I always say that you guys are one of my favorite brands. I truly mean that. And it's not necessarily that I'm using your products every single day. I would. But again, it's more of like, I just understand what y'all are going for and the things you've achieved with this brand and your outfit that you've given it is, I think, incredible. And that's really my motivation too of having y'all on, but I would like more people to get not only introduced to that as a consumer, but also other people in the industry that are maybe considering creating a business or a brand. It's in this industry, it's the same old sometimes. You see the same products on people's shelves. How are you going to differentiate yourself? And you have to have that strong brand. And you guys have done that so incredibly well. And I really like what you said about that, because when you create a real brand and you go after sort of a niche or you target certain people like in Railway and in Houston with this brand, it's a huge differentiator, but also it's just something that people can start to get behind. And I think that becomes your community. You guys start having events like the 420 event, Flower Hour. I see you guys do a lot of the cocktail stuff with your infusions. And I think people should really not underestimate how much work that is.
It is a lot of work.
And also how important that it is, because I think like people try to walk into this industry and they think it's easy. They think that they can get a white label, this, that, or the other, and pick up on, go off to the races. But it definitely has, you guys have set an amazing foundation. So I did want to talk more into that, because what I say to a lot of people, not only in the industry, my friends, my family, but even some of my clients doing consulting and marketing, is that a lot of people getting into this right now are first-time users.
100%.
They're first-time users. And it's important when you guys have a setup like this, it's cozy, it's trendy, it's cool. Your brand is very palatable, relatable. And it makes such a difference when you're talking about, approaching people and also having people approach you and being first-time users for cannabis and CBD, whatever they're looking for. So
yeah, we were really intentional about that. We wanted to
that's
attract,
a good word. Intentional is a good word.
For sure. We were definitely intentional about the name, the colors. We wanted it to be welcoming with regard to the whole honeysuckle thing. It was something that was nostalgic for me.
Yeah.
Nostalgia sells. Just to expand more on the story, I wanted something that was unique to the South, the southern part of the United States, because I feel like we're just kind of left out of that. You have the West Coast, and all praises be to the West Coast. And in New York now is just a humongous market, but it's kind of feel like we're just kind of out in the cold, so to speak. Yeah. And so we were really intentional about that. The customer that comes through here is, as you said, they're Canna Curious. Mm-hmm. They're not really expecting to see this here. They're here to get a meal or to shop some other retail vendors. And so they walk around, they kind of see, and then the color attracts them like a flower, and they say, oh, well, what do you guys sell? And that's when we go into our spiel. And we also are very intentional about the education part of it. I mean, you said we can keep it real here. None of us here have dispensaries,
right?
Unless you have, you're with a compassionate use, mm-hmm. and you're able to do that. But we want to keep that dispensary vibe as much as possible, even though we're not a true dispensary. And so what that looks like is answering the questions, mm-hmm. color coding things so that they can make easy decisions, and taking a consultative selling approach where we're asking questions so that we can put them in the best product for them.
Super powerful. Super powerful. Definitely, I like the color coding. That's cool that you do that. I like that you say, where Canna Curious meets cannabis connoisseur. That's awesome, because I think another stigma is that, okay, CBD is what it is, doesn't work. It's a fad, it's fake. Then you have Delta 8 and THC now being introduced. People are like, okay, well, that's really serious. I'm going to get really high, So I think the way you guys have handled almost every single corner of this brand is awesome. And being intentional obviously goes a long way. I definitely also want to talk about, these events, what effect does that kind of outreach and continuing that education, but being kind of that open arm for the Canna Curious and or even the Cannasseur of like 420 flower hour, and I've seen other events that you guys have done. Like, how has that been for the business and the brand as far as the outreach and the connection? Have you retained people from that and gathered new people?
Big time.
So I would say in regards to the events, that's always been really important to us in bringing the community together. And I would say oftentimes, we've gotten asked like, what's the vibe? Like you just get so many different people. You get the cannabis connoisseurs, right? Your true stoners who are like, well, can I smoke there? Like how out there can I be? Right. And then you've got like your Canna Curious who are like, are there any people be smoking there? Right. So like, how do you combine these two groups of people so that everyone feels like they're connected in a way? Right. And so we try to make our events quote unquote mainstream, if you will, right? Yeah. Where you can still grab the attention of, again, those Canna Curious who are like, hey, I can drink a cannabis infused cocktail. That sounds cool. That's chill. And they're okay being in that environment with someone who's smoking, right? And then you've got, your smokers who want to be in a place where, hey, I can smoke freely in a, outdoor environment and no one's going to be looking at me weird or, hey, why are you doing that? Right. And so, I would say that's how we've been able to sort of mix those two groups together. And then in regards to like retaining people from the events, we use a really cool platform internally that allows us to track purchases and ticket sales and all these things. And it essentially shows us the retention level of customers. And I can't remember the exact number, so don't quote me on this, but last month, when we were looking at the month of March, about 75% of our sales for the month of March were repeat customers. Wow. So we're really trying to build a community where, again, people want to come back to us. They feel comfortable with us. We've created a space that's welcoming, that's inviting, that's relatable. We're bringing in new products for them to try. From seltzers to, water soluble nano products to different gummy flavors and just different things that, that we can introduce people to, again, to make people feel comfortable, feel educated and, part of a community and part of a space.
The metric tracking that you just mentioned is amazing. People, I think they also discount events because they think, okay, I'm going to spend a bunch of money, maybe get some exposure, but it's like a billboard or anything else with no data, but having that ability is huge. And that goes back to your point that y'all just made with intention on doing things. And that does kind of go in line with like Puff and Prosper, my brand, y'all's brand too, is that, this is a business too. At the end of the day, this is a business. And even though you're here to educate and offer knowledge and exposure to products and a responsible use, it's still a business. And, people, I think it's cool to have some events sometimes and realize that you get in the hole here and there trying to get people out. But if you do it with intention, that's amazing that you guys are tracking even that data. That's something that I have not even thought about in my experience.
Retention is huge. Yeah, because they're re-ing up every month, right? Yeah, we got a 30-day supply, so we have to re-up. You were saying before about differentiating yourself, right? And so I say this all the time, like nobody's doing anything new, right? Like you can go buy weed anywhere, at this point. I mean, and that goes for just about any industry. So what is it that you're going to do that's going to separate you? And we've chose events as a way because of the connection that you can shake hands, you get to have an experience with people, and your customers want to connect with you on different levels. And so last summer, we brought out the HoneySuckle Spotify playlist where I curated some songs. I'm about to come out with a 420 curated playlist. The playlist is called Happy Days Ahead. So if y'all want to check it out, it's on Spotify, plug in. I love it. So yeah, just wanted to share that part about the events. Oh, and we wanted to, look at this place. How will we not leverage it? Right? We have to leverage this in some way. And so we're tenants here. And so, like you said, we've done Canna cocktails, introducing people to a different way of delivery method where you can consume on site and not have to smoke. Of course, with our outdoor events, we have, buy-in from our landlord where we're allowed to have consumption freely in a designated area. And so buy-in from the landlord with the relationships that we've built, that's huge. Yeah. So
I've been in positions too where I've had clients that are partnered with brands that wanted to do events, and they do it with some intention. They don't track the metrics to the extent that Jasmine is. That's a hack. That's I might cut that out so that no one knows about that. But anyway, I've done events where, you sink the cost in, you get the people out, and then the return doesn't come for 60, 90, 12 months even. But eventually you start to see like that people came to your event, or my son, my daughter, my friend, my sister, my brother, they came to your event. They told me about you.
Yeah.
And then you get that word of mouth edge too. So it's super powerful. And I like that you guys do events. I have attended some personally. Julia has attended some personally. Super fun, great atmosphere. You guys do provide like a stellar atmosphere.
Appreciate it.
I do want to touch on the location of where at least Carlos and I are standing right now, of Railway, and like, why did you guys pick this kind of setup? What has it done for you? That kind of thing. I'm actually super curious because you guys have been here a while.
Yeah.
So that's probably a good sign.
Yeah. So we started pop-up style, just markets, different farmers market, or not farmers markets, but hemp markets or other type of markets, artisan markets.
It's cool.
And then our first kind of like coming out party was 713 Day.
Wow.
And so, we were the only cannabis sponsor for the entire event. So that was really cool. It had pretty much all of the local rap legends here, Don Kiki, Slim Thug, Paul Wall. And so that was a huge, huge event. And so one of my former colleagues told us about this place and said, hey, they're offering vendor opportunities outside on the weekends. Y'all should go check it out. And so we came and we checked it out. They were checking revenue every afternoon after we would leave. I mean, we're doing well. We're selling weed, so it was pretty easy to sell. And so they offered us a space and we were like, yeah, I mean, this is a way of having a brick and mortar without having a brick and mortar. Where else in Houston, Texas, are you going to get foot traffic? And so that was kind of, I don't know if you wanted to add something to that, Jasmine, if I missed anything.
No, it's pretty spot on. It's exactly how it happened. It was just super successful as a vendor. And when they offered us the opportunity, we were like, hell yeah, we're in. Like, it's a no brainer. We've been there now for a year and a half.
Yeah, I love it because you're also getting that whole like borrowed audience thing.
Yeah.
From the food, from the coffee downstairs, from the retail, the trendy shops, which I think is a lot of that demographic is your demographic, is your audience,
Totally.
And I think what's cool is watching cannabis kind of get normalized to where you do come to a place like Railway, you do walk the shops, you do grab food, but there's also, a CBD and hemp retailer. You can go get these things. It's starting to be really cool. And I like the borrowed audience thing. It's not often you get to do that in this industry. A lot of people have that stigma. They're hesitant to let you rent from them, have events at their place, be involved with you, whatever, which I think is completely stupid, especially at this point with how normalized cannabis has becoming. But this spot I did want to just talk about because it's amazing. I think it is a true testament to the way that you guys think about your business too. Because obviously there's not anyone here trying to compete. There isn't anyone else, I don't think, in Texas that really has the same outfit in a location like this. Maybe we'll cut that out too. But I did want to highlight that because it's super cool what you guys are doing. And I think you do get more first time users, and it's a borrowed audience. That's a super powerful thing, I think, in this industry for people that know or don't know. It's hard to do marketing. It's hard to gain
100%.
exposure.
Yep.
We're always fighting against the grain. Jasmine knows this very well. I know this very well. You know this very well. We are, always going an uphill battle. Unless you're using influencers and stuff like that, like borrowing audiences is difficult. And this is a great hack. That's super cool.
So my background before I started the business and resigned was a small business coach for a nonprofit here in Houston. And so I did that for 5 years. And so this ecosystem attracted me because like we all feed off of each other, right? And like you said, you get to piggyback. I get to introduce my customers to them. And so all of the businesses in here are local businesses. Right. Nobody in here is a chain. everybody's here bootstrapping it or has investors and is just trying to make it happen. And so, we incorporate them into our events as well. Like, for example, our 420 event, we give them first right of refusal. If you want to have a booth down there, you can have one, right? And you have a reduced fee, those types of things. We certainly don't, with regard to your comment about the competition, you're right. We don't have to compete with any other CBD companies or hemp retailers in here, but we don't shy away from competition. I mean, we've had hemp markets that we host and we bring in competition, because at the end of the day, it's about that individual entrepreneur, like what type of connection, your branding, what are you bringing to the table, and let the customer decide. More choice is better.
Absolutely.
Right. That's just how we kind of look at it.
I love that. I also love collaboration over competition.
100%.
Because this industry is huge. Like I also don't think that people keep that in perspective enough and think big enough, because this industry is huge. The amount of people you can reach, like we're talking about, we reach newbies every day.
Yeah.
But then there's also the people who are already exposed. It's interesting, that battle of reach, and that's a good hack, honestly. So I do want to talk about, I think the number one thing, the most important thing that you guys have going on right now, which is what your shirt says, and what is all over the place, and from what Jasmin has expressed to me, has been y'all's most popular thing, their next big thing to explode.
Yeah.
My personal opinion, it's one of the best tasting seltzers. I've tasted, all of them from, this manufacturer and that manufacturer. This is one of the best ones. So I'm glad to hear that it's doing very, very well. So I want you guys to kind of dive into that. And first of all, the name, how you branded it. I like to highlight that you guys brought a seltzer into a brand instead of trying to brand a seltzer. Because I've also been on that side of just taking a seltzer and making it its own brand. It's difficult to play the beverage game if you don't have the leverage and the foundation and the audience already captive with this products that you've done your due diligence with, and then introduce them to a new method of dosing. It's super cool. So you guys take it away. Talk about Nectar. I really want to, maybe should we crack a few? Can we?
Hell yeah. Cool? Let's do it. Dude.
I feel like that's only right. Yeah. Anyway, Jasmin, you can start us off talking about Nectar. We're going to crack a few cold ones in here.
Yeah, enjoy. So nectar is actually one of my favorite things of our honeysuckle products. And so going back to me being the Canna Curious one, and being against cannabis for so many years, I actually microdose now on a daily basis, and nectar is typically one of the products that I use in my day-to-day life. And so it's a really great option for people who, again, don't want to smoke, and someone who wants to feel the effects pretty quickly. And so our nectar line, thinking back again to the honeysuckle flower, again, intentional. So I've never tried the honeysuckle flower in its natural form, but what Carlos taught me about the honeysuckle flower is, growing up in Georgia as a kid, he used to go to the honeysuckle, plant, and he would grab a flower and you suck the nectar out of it. So if you talk to anyone who's from the South and who has experienced that, they're like, oh yeah, you suck the nectar out of the honeysuckle. And so when we were coming up with the nectar line, that was the purpose of, coming up with that name, again, intentional around it. And so the nectar line is essentially water soluble, nano emulsified products, where we have them in different forms. We have shots, we have like a pump bottle where you can make your own cocktails, you can put it into any drink. And then the latest is the seltzer. And so they're all drinkables, they're all beverages. And again, it's one of my favorite ways to consume honeysuckle. And I use it as an alcohol alternative in the evenings. And so instead of grabbing a glass of wine or, a beer, I have my honeysuckle nectar at home. I'll make, like the simplest cocktail. I'm talking like some lemonade and some, I'm sorry.
Like
marijuana affects the memory.
It happens. I feel like it's only appropriate.
club soda,
Club soda.
lemonade and club soda, and a little pump of nectar. Like that's literally it. And it's the easiest thing. It's fast. You feel it in like 5 minutes, just like if you're sipping on some wine. So,
yep. Well, shout out also Bayou City Hemp.
Yeah, definitely.
They're the ones who actually make the stuff. So, you know, just for in the spirit of the theme of this podcast in terms of business and stuff, it's another example of strategic partnership, right? Obviously, this is where we operate out of. It's a 12x8 space. I don't have a manufacturing facility. And so partnering up with the largest manufacturer in the state has been a huge blessing. Shout out Ryan. He's definitely been a godsend for us. Kind of introduced us into the water soluble stuff. And then just intuitively, it just made sense to us. I mean, again, also trying to help people consume on site without smoking. Definitely. That was a big thing, you know? And so we just saw the vision. We saw the future of the trend. And so we're like, yeah, let's do it. And then the seltzer boom came. And then he was like, yo, y'all got to do a seltzer. And so we're like, okay, let's do a seltzer. So we were able to get that done. And it's been a blessing. It's almost like, you know, just being authentic and vulnerable. It's almost like scary, or like you don't know how to act because people are like, oh my God, it's so awesome. And it's just everybody's saying it's awesome. And it's like, are you really being truthful, or are you just kind of, you know what I mean? So, you know,
so
super
on this
grateful.
podcast, we do not lie. We do not lie. And this is the best tasting THC seltzer on the market. I'm just putting that on camera, on record. We can
salute
make
to
content
that.
out of that.
Sure.
This is the best one. Yes, woohoo! This is the best one by far. As flavor, consistency, the brand, everything. You guys have killed it absolutely with this.
Thank you, man.
And I love the alcohol alternative that is so popular right now. It's helped me in my life, my personal life. Julia, my friends and family kind of have kicked the alcohol thing, and some have replaced it with things like this, with more cannabis, more CBD, more THC. But just, I think going into bars now and restaurants now as a non-drinker, if this is something that starts to become offered, you know, in different venues and places like that, it makes it so much more fun for people to go out, spend the money, knowing that they're not pressured to drink. You're not pressured into that, or you're not going to be, you know, looked at weird drinking water or whatever, you know, and you feel that kind of societal norms start to creep in, and people, you know, kind of give you that look of like, you know, why are you not drinking? Everybody, you know, kind of gets that.
Sure.
But to have alcohol alternatives like this is awesome. And the fact that you guys are on the forefront of that is super cool. I'm glad we got to highlight that here. So definitely everyone check out HoneySuckle's Nectar Seltzer. It's incredible. The flavor, everything. It's a low dose, so you can start low, go slow, kind of a thing.
Again, intentional,
right?
We wanted you to be able to have a social experience with your friends, have one or two or three, instead of just drinking one and then you're done.
Yeah.
Also makes more business sense. I want you to drink more than one instead of just drinking one, you know? So
definitely. Yeah. Well, that's super cool. I'm excited for you guys to get even more deep into the seltzer game. I think it's wide open right now. I mean, the drink space, the beverage space, infusions, even to the liquid, like the pumps and the shots and stuff. I mean, people are adding this stuff to coffee, to their sports drinks, like to their day-to-day life. Yeah. Which is super cool for cannabis, and to see cannabis going to that way, which is cool that you guys are on the hemp side and stuff, because people I think that because we're in CBD or hemp that we're, you know, it's limited. I think we have more opportunity
100%
than what the legal rec and medical markets have.
Big time.
And this is a perfect example of this, because, you know, you can easily offer a variant of your seltzer to get into different markets depending on laws and stuff like that. It's very versatile and palatable for people to just try. I think something that we talked about, like I've gone into shops and people that have bought your inventory or inventory from another brand, they're giving seltzers away when they walk in the door. So it's like you get that brand recognition, that product was already paid for on your end. Yeah. And that retailer goes ahead and takes their own hit to basically market your product because it's that cool, and it opens up more of a conversation. Big time. And I've seen that, and that's super cool. And that's not happening with other products. No. You know? This is that golden ticket, I think, for a lot of brands like yourself, and expanding into beverage, even though it's a little difficult. You got to start moving pallets and stuff. And all that fun
hopefully
stuff.
You can get a distributor that can help you on that. And just got to understand that it's a volume game, and that you're not going to, you know, make a whole bunch of money on each can. You know what I mean? So you have to get them out there. But going back to what you were saying about, you know, the legacy markets, you know, we attended our first MJ BizCon this past year. And, you know, you kind of have a little bit of intimidation, right? You're the hemp guy, right? But if any of you guys are interested in getting into cannabis, hemp is the way to go. I mean, just off rip, interstate commerce.
Yep.
I can send this all over the country and have no problem. USPS and have no problems. You can't do that in your legacy markets. You know, that in and of itself. And, you know, yeah, you don't really get to dive into the smokable game too much, you know, but, you know, there are other things, you know.
Definitely other things. That's cool that you say that about hemp. I do want to kind of get away from that rap that, you know, CBD and hemp is not cannabis. From everything I've experienced over the last 3 years, like it absolutely is, like 100%. From the grow level like that I do with Jeremy and some of my partners to even this level and what y'all do. I mean, this is absolutely, you know, full blown the cannabis industry. We're just
and y'all have y'all, not to switch subjects, but y'all have probably the best D8 flower that I have seen.
Thank you.
And
it's gonna get better. I promise.
It's really good stuff. Really, really good stuff.
Thank you. So before we wrap this up, there's something else that I did want to cover with you guys while I have you. Because it's, you know, it's already April, events are going to start happening. Who knows when we'll be able to get together and just talk openly about this, but this is probably more of a Jasmin type of topic, but I want to talk about social media with you guys, obviously, because Jasmin is a professional at that. But also just in this industry, I think it's interesting to mention to people, you know, the nuances of social media, but how you guys have kind of conquered that and maintained that audience, reach these people. And, you know, how do you fight the battle of not getting shut down and, you know, making sure that your page stays up so all the work that you've done is not wasted and that sort of thing. I wanted to touch on that a little bit because I think that adds value to a lot of different audiences too that might listen to this podcast because they're fighting that fight. So,
yeah, man, such a tough conversation because, you know, first, you're asking me to give away some of my secrets, which I'll share. I'll share some of them, but not all of them.
No, definitely. You can stay surface level for sure.
Yeah. And I would say, you know, on the other end, super difficult conversation just because it bleeds into my skin sometime with how difficult it is and, you know, all the stuff we have to go through. And so just for a background, you know, I've been in the social media and marketing world for almost 10 years, about 8 years now. And so I'm the chief marketing officer of HoneySuckle. And so all of my role is really focused on, you know, social media marketing, the events and things like that, and just making sure we have a consistent brand message. And so social media has been fun. Fingers crossed, everyone knock on wood. We have not had any pages taken down up to this point. And it's really a matter of being just really careful on the words you use, the keywords, like I barely use any hashtags. None of them are ever related to hemp or cannabis. And so it definitely poses its challenges around how do you reach people outside of who's already following you, right? And so I've sort of come to this point where I don't really care about reaching people outside of who's already following me because I don't want to get shut down, right? And so the thing that I would say is the most frustrating, though, is having to use terminology and words that can be misconstrued and aren't 100% clear. And to me, that's where the legalities and the community guidelines of the platforms really need to consider how, you know, everyone says, oh, we don't want this for kids. Oh, all this stuff is getting into the hands of kids. Great. If we don't want it to get into the hands of kids, we need to be super clear and say, this is cannabis. This is THC. This is intended for, 21 and up. And so there's this clear messaging on the social platforms that we can say so that people know, okay, this isn't for my kids to see. This is for me, right? If we're not clear in that messaging, it's going to get into the wrong hands. And so one of the biggest things that I think that needs to shift for the social platforms is let's all get on the same page that what's legal is legal, what's illegal is illegal. And this is for 21 and up. And how can we essentially use some of the same guidelines that bars use or alcohol companies use, right? How can we adopt some of those guidelines that are out there for them so that we can be clear in the messaging and make sure that it's reaching the right consumers?
And I think it's a great testament to how great of a marketing mind that you have, Carlos, or that it takes in this industry, because you do have to do things differently. You have to get creative, get outside of the box, make sure that you're crafting a message that not only, drives a point home to who you're trying to reach, but also drives a point to who you're not trying to reach as well. But it's cool that you touched on that, because that is something when people, I think, will check out HoneySuckle now. Hopefully everyone checks out HoneySuckle Brand on Instagram, Facebook, that sort of thing. And we'll kind of see a testament to, again, y'all's mind, your brain on this brand and the way that you handle social media, even though it's an absolute uphill battle. I hate that it's an uphill battle for this industry. I think that as time is progressing, it's getting looser and looser. But still, I mean, with it being such a powerful tool, like you said, to not even worry about reaching new people, but retaining your current community, and then one day to think that you can mess up and be wiped off the face of the planet, is hard for these businesses, because it does, just like you said, it takes skill, it takes creativity, it takes honestly man hours, time and due diligence to be even moderately successful on some of these platforms. So I'm glad we can talk about that. If anyone's interested, if anyone's out there, obviously, and is interested in social media and stuff, Jasmin is your absolute go-to. So I will put out plenty of information on that. I'm also going to be writing a blog to accompany this episode that we're recording right now, that goes into detail about the HoneySuckle seltzer, not only from a personal opinion and review side, but also like from the people themselves, on what goes into this, the nano emulsification, what that means. Some people, are still not totally up to speed on that. So I'd like to bring more knowledge and also highlight this amazing product. So that's awesome. I think we can go ahead and just kind of wind down. If you guys have anything else that you want to add, please add it. I want to say thank you to both of you, seriously, for not only what you do for the industry, but taking this chance on me and coming on the show, giving up your retail space again. The Puff and Prosper podcast is going to stay on the frontier of some of this, bring you content just like this, where we dive into the businesses, the culture, the products in and around the cannabis industry, and talk to influential people like Carlos and Jasmin, and the things that they're doing for their immediate communities and their people. And it's super exciting. So if you like this, like it, save it, comment on it, share it. If you hated it, I want to know that too. So go talk shit in the comments if you want. But again, thank you, Carlos and Jasmin.
Thank you, man.
HoneySuckle Brand.
Thank you. Jasmin, do you have anything you want to say?
No, I just appreciate the opportunity and your support.
Always.
Yeah, thank you for even considering us, and thank you for putting this together and putting your time and energy into this, because these are the types of things that are going to normalize this and show people that we're just normal people that are productive, that build businesses, that have families.
Yes.
And then just, like to get high.
That's what it's all about. Together we can puff and prosper, everybody. So thank you. And we'll see you on the next one.